Hi everyone, welcome to Life in the Key of a journey to the origins of songs and a place of conversation for all creators alike. In this very first episode, I recall a conversation I had with my good friend Joel Gomez about my very first album called 349 and the stories behind each song. Stay tuned because this episode starts right now. We're on opening day in baseball, April 7th, 2022, and here we are, starting finally the process that I never thought I would start, but I am anyway. I think this album is important, and I think this is going to be like a therapy session, and let's, I guess, start talking about the first song. Is there anything that you want to ask me specifically, Joel? You ask and I shall answer best that I can.
Right. What was? I mean, there is, of course, so much to ask, but it's a good idea to capture in a few words what this is all about. I guess the 349, if we can have an idea, like, of what was going on.
Really, this album is about my process with this whole pandemic, and I guess how it affected me, and of course, I think this is also a crossroads sort of thing for me. No, I think it really is. I think it's one of those things where I've wanted to say for so long, how maybe I've gotten it wrong all this time, maybe my perspective on life hasn't been where it always should be, and maybe I've been wrong, and that's okay, because that's what this album is about. This album is maybe about me coming to terms with what happened in 349. And by the way, 349 is the room where I was hospitalized for 19 days in 2020, August of 2020. It was 19 days of just trial, absolute loneliness. I was in a very small square room with just a bed, a oxygen system, this entire thing that they had. I don't know if they still have it right now, but back in in that time, they were fitting the rooms with these large oxygen systems, that were fitted for heavy oxygen, dispersal, right? And there was no windows. There was a small glass where, the doctors would kind of peek in from and just look at you kind of like you were some sort of extraterrestre. So, I mean, I do remember that, being in that room, they always had the lights off. Even though I always asked them to turn them on, lights were always off. There was no window, so I never knew if it was sunny, if it was rainy, or I didn't see the light of day for 19 days. You start looking in the eye of certain things like, doubt and, loneliness, helplessness, and you start to kind of dine with these thoughts, and these thoughts that otherwise would seem so distant to you start kind of creeping in and making space in your mind, making themselves comfortable in your heart. I'm not afraid to say it. Suicide wasn't a far-fetched thing because I was in the dark for so long, and just when you're that close to these thoughts, when you're that close to these feelings that you've never been comfortable with, I think that's when I think God allows you to come to a point of okay, I'm where I never thought I would ever be in my life. So what do I do now? Why am I here? And if I get out of here, what am I going to do with my life? So you come to a point where you have to choose. You do or you die. It's like you, and I think that this whole album for me was a crossroads. Where I decided, do I want to live my life to correspond to the miracle of life that I've been given? Or do I want to be just another statistic? Because that's really what this is at the end of the day. You have to understand that. My pastor always says something that really inspires me. There's three types of people in this world. There's people that make things happen. There's people that see things happening. And there's people that ask what happened. I would hate to be the type that asks what happened at the end of my life.
What happened?
I would hate so. So I think I'm so glad I'm 28 now. At the time I was 27, or about, I had just turned 27. Yeah, I had just turned 27, turning 29 this year. So, I think I was at this point in my life where I wanted to. I had to decide now. Before I hit my 30, the big 30. What am I going to do with my life? Like, am I going to try to correspond, I'm sorry, because I'll never be able to do it fully, right? But try to correspond to the miracle of life, or will I just live my life going through the motions? And I think that's what do or die is. There comes a point in life where you have to do or you die.
We were talking about do or die. It's the usual reference, right? Do or die, make or break, go big or go home. You decided to go big, to pursue that, whatever it was that was greater than you, because it seems like there was something bigger, something greater. Like you were like, I don't want to be one more statistic, right? Like one more number, like someone who died or someone who did this and that's it. But like you wanted to be something, but I guess you realized that there was life, that there was. When did you see that ray of light? That, or if it was like that, I guess, like there was a breaking point. When did you see it? What made you what made you say? I should say, I want to be that. Like there is still the opportunity, the slightest chance.
I mean, I think you start answering that question by defining what is life. I think if you think of life as just breathing, it's just a very common thing. But if you think of life as in fulfilling a purpose, and all of a sudden it requires something in return. I think everything in life requires equivalent exchange. If you want something, you have to give something of equal value in return. I know this is sort of an anime reference, but it's true. Really, it is. Because often in times in life, when our parents go, what is the first thing you think about? What is my inheritance? And I ask myself, damn, do you really have to wait until the end of someone's life to realize that the inheritance that they already gave you was to give you life? Was to give you the opportunity to experience love. Like Denzel Washington once said something that I tear up every time I hear it. He said, a mother is a son's first true love, and a son is a mother's last true love. And it's like, so do I have to wait until the end of my life? Do I have to wait until the end of someone's life to realize that they've already given me so much? It's like, so for me, when did I realize that there was life? It was that when I realized that there was life in me, it was when I realized that I was still living. If I'm still living, that means there's a purpose still left for me to do. There's still something for me to do. I haven't given. I mean, think about it. Your life as a whole is an improbability that has become a reality.
Yes.
When a man, reproduces his semen, there's 6 million sperm cells that travel, but only one. One makes it. So it's like you were that 1 in 6 million probability. So do you have to really, like, I think that the interesting thing about all this is that how the older you get, you think you would think, oh, you know more. I think the older I've gotten, the more I've realized how little I know. I was thinking about yesterday, the depth of the ocean. According to science, we only know about 5% of it. 5% of the known ocean. You could put the Mount Everest, which we've both gone to Nepal, by the way,
Yes.
upside down, and that will still only be 5% of the ocean. The highest point that we know is still only 5%. And I think it's only when you realize all these improbabilities, all these unexplainable things that God is, even if you want to choose to believe in God, even if you choose to believe in life after death, even if you choose to believe in Buddha or whatever it is that you want to believe, God is a father, because God has created things that you don't understand for your good, that you don't understand.
And it goes back to, I guess, part of what the song talks about, right? At the beginning, those words from a very significant, meaningful person, person of value for you, I'm
My
assuming,
mother, I
right?
remember that we're here to fulfill a purpose in life. We're here to create a way for others to live on through others. I think at the end of the day, it's not about what you leave people, it's what you leave inside of them. We live in such an instantaneous culture where I want instant gratification for everything. It's like I want the brand new iPhone 13 or 14, whatever's coming out. And once I have it, I forget about it. Yeah, I forget about it
Yes.
because we're part of this whole instant gratification culture, and it's wonderful to feel satisfied. It's wonderful to feel gratification. It's wonderful to feel this feeling of, satisfaction, but at the end of the day, that doesn't it doesn't preserve beyond that. It's just a feeling. Um, a person once said, "Money can't buy happiness," and then the other
Mm,
person said, "No, money does buy happiness sometimes, but you got to give it away.
yes.
It's not something that you keep for yourself." I think as a humanity, as a human race, we've forgotten how to give. It's more about, what do I get in return? What's in it for me? And I think
Mm,
maybe at one point I thought at age 27, man, is there really anything left for me? Like I tried, this whole music thing, creating music, and it just, like you start thinking, asking yourself, God, why did you close that door? When I clearly want to go through that door.
mm,
And
mhm.
again, I go back to the whole thing. Regardless if you believe in God or not, you have to understand, God is a father. He lets things happen for you. He doesn't let things happen to you.
For
And
you.
it's like you will never understand why God does the things he does for you until you become a father. And you realize, oh, that's why you scolded me. One of the most interesting miracles that Jesus ever performed was when he cured that blind man. And instead of giving him an instant relief to his problem, or an instant gratification or an instant satisfaction, he said, "No, I don't want to just fix your eyesight. I want to fix what's in here. What's up
Yeah.
here, your mindset."
Fine.
And he
Mhm.
said, "Okay, you go." And he literally put mud on his eyes and said,
Yes.
"Go and wash yourself in the Shiloh, in the waters, el estanque de Siloé." I don't
Yeah.
know how you say it in English, but it's like, I think that that's what God does to you a lot of times. If you're at this point in the crossroads where you ask yourself, why am I here? Why am I not successful? Have I tried? Maybe you have mud in your eyes, and you got to fix what's up here before you can see what's in front of you.
Wow. And Vuelve, it's a particular song. Like not what you would hear every day. Like the sounds, like the instruments are not common instruments, everyday instruments, and I like that. Um, I guess if the song is particular and has these specific, notes and melodies, I guess it is speaking to a certain person, like someone in particular. Like who is it who is Vuelve talking to? Like, what is the message of that song?
Well, this song in specific, it was written before COVID, and I just remember one day asking myself, like, why does God make time for me? I asked myself, why should
Yes.
God be available for me? And I think this song, it's I'm trying to talk to this old friend. I tell my niece this all the time. Hey, listen, don't get attached to the people you go to school with, because 99% of them are just going to be classmates. People that you're not even going to associate yourself with 5 years from now. And because people change, and some people in your life
Yes.
are just seasonal. But the Bible talks about friends. El amigo es mejor que un hermano en tiempo de la prueba. You know, a friend is better than a brother sometimes in time of need. And I reserve that word for very few people, friend. Personally, that's just on a personal level of mine. I reserve that for very few people. And I would say this to you. I would say that this song is trying to, it was just me at the time trying to get in touch with a friend that I had maybe sung about so much and talked to very little. And that's okay. I don't mind saying that, because, I mean, I think we all have to come to a point where, like, we recognize, hey, maybe you're not dedicating as much time to God as you should. And I think it's when I'm close to Him, I feel the joy of salvation. When I'm close to Him, I feel the joy of being free. But when I'm not close to Him is when I feel this need to feel loved and just need to feel, safe. You know, when I think of salvation, I just don't mean your like soul being saved and being able to one day look into the eyes of God, but I also think of God as my safe place.
You're making me remember, I guess, when you were talking about like bring the joy of salvation to me. Those are words from
course.
David. We've talked about David a lot, and how much of an inspiration he has been for hundreds of generations at this point, because of how sincere his words were towards God, and how in that case he felt towards God, like, and in that case, like, because he was able to feel the Spirit in his life, like on an everyday level, and he knew what it was to be without God, like you're saying. So he knew and really wanted to be close to that God, to that friend, to that someone who was in his life, like, and who had been so meaningful. And many times, I guess, we just go through the motions and everyday thing, like it's an everyday thing. We don't make pauses to realize how important certain people are, like family, wife, your mother, your father, your brothers, and how like those high school friends or friends from school, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, they are not gonna be there. And who is going to be there with you, and who is ultimately with you no matter what.
And that to me, that's the funniest thing about this all, right? We spend so much time on things that don't have any eternal value. It's like we live in a world right now, right, where everyone's trying to secure their future, secure their near future, secure the next 5 years, secure college funds for your kids because they're going to be going to college 10 years from now, or all that is understandable. I think all that is very valid, but when you die, my friend, your body isn't going with you. Your soul is going to live on forever. Have you spent enough time getting to know the one that your soul is going to spend the rest of eternity for? That's what I ask myself with. That's why I think that David said, I need your joy of salvation, because when you know who you're going to spend your eternity with, there's a sense of joy. it has to bring joy for you to know that, wow, I'm going to spend eternity with Christ. I'm going to spend eternity in the presence of the Lord. And I think that David understood that, yes, it is important to praise God while you're alive, but knowing that this is just the process, this is just the journey, this is just the voyage. It's not the destination. And I think that that's the important thing. That's why the song says vuelve, because I want you to come back. I want you to come back for me, and I want you to take me to where we really need to be going. This is just the voyage. This is not the destination. And I think the song for me was coming back to a point where I said, all right, let's take this back to where we started. You know, oftentimes, like as musicians, we ask when we're in a slump of creativity, when we're in a slump of like, oh, I don't know how to get out of this slump, or writer's block, like what some people call it, or,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
or guitar limbo, some guys call it, or piano limbo, or whatever instrument that you play. What is it? The number one thing that a lot of these masters recommend: go back to the roots, go back to where you started. And I promise you, it's going to teach you something that you didn't learn the first time around. And see, God is this infinite source of wisdom, this infinite source of love, this infinite source of everything. So every time you renew your relationship with God, which should be every day, I mean, it's not to say that you're repenting every day, but in the sense of like, oh my God, because I think there's a difference between remorse and repentance. Yeah. Repentance is when you say, I'll never do this again, and you take the decision not to do it again because you're aware of the pain.
You turn your
You're
back
aware of the pain and the damage that does to the other person. But when you say to God, you know what, I want to know a different side of you today, God, because I understand that you're infinite, and there's infinite amount of ways for me, you know, to get close to you, and I want to learn to be more like you. And I think Vuelve is about that. This person coming to a realization. I think the writer was trying to come to a realization of like, hey, listen, I think we're both in different places right now, but I think we can get close again. I need to fix this. I need to call for you. And here's the interesting thing about God's love, Joel. You can never find God. God is so far away from you, but he finds you. That's why la palabra dice, clama a mí, yo te responderé. You know, shout to me, you know, call for me and I will respond. You know, it's like, but here's the thing. It's like, God can't really do anything unless you call him. You got to make the call. You got to put your pride away. You got to do whatever it is that you need to do to get past this point. Vuelve. That's what it's about for me. It's about coming to a point where you need to put your pride. You need to lay your weapon down and raise the white flag.
We were talking about volver, right? Like coming back, and I like that concept of going back to your roots, to who you are, and this song "Clamé a ti." I like it because it doesn't say, you know, that you simply prayed or that you simply expressed, you know, that you needed, you know, help. You were shouting, crying out. That really requires more, like expression from your body, you know, intent, emotion. You know, that crying out needs to be raw, actually. Was that the meaning of the song? Was that the nature of the song? What was it?
I mean, for me, that song was like my lifesaver song. Have you ever heard the theory on lifesavers? Like the you know, lifeguards, I'm sorry. Lifeguards, not
yes.
Lifesavers.
They need a life.
I mean, they're lifesavers, right? Yeah, they do save lives at the end of the day, right? But the theory on lifeguards is that they when rescuing a person, they don't rescue a person when they're, you know, kind of like, you know, still struggling to stay afloat.
Survive.
Because
to stay afloat.
When you're struggling, is you're telling the lifeguard, I got this. But when you decide to sink, It's when you say, I am no longer in control of whether my life goes on or ends at this point because I no longer have control. I can no longer swim.
And the thing is, even the life of the lifeguard in that sense can be at risk
100%.
because you could they both can drown, and we don't want that scenario.
But at the end of the day,
right?
that's
So
why he's a lifeguard. I'm not.
yeah, exactly. I mean, but because they're struggling, you're struggling, and then you can even
course.
reach for his arm and grab him, and something,
Which is
you know,
why
something
they
can happen.
recommend until the person.
They wait, yeah, exactly. They wait till you sort of give up,
And
right?
honestly, that's where I got to at that point. I remember I was in the hospital at this time. I was going through a very, very emotional crisis. When I got to the hospital I was diagnosed with COVID on August 7th, 2020. And
Very close.
it was
to your
on 3 days
birthday,
after my
right?
birthday. It was 3 days after my birthday. And I remember that, you know, I wanted to be at church that weekend. But you know, it was that Friday. I had to call pastor and I was like, yeah, sorry, I'm not going to be able to go to church. And I said to myself, man, it's just going to be 2 weeks. I got this. No big deal. Like, I mean, I'm young. You know, it's, I said to myself, it's going to be all right. It's going to be a no problem. And honestly, the first couple of days wasn't that bad.
Okay.
But then it's when I let it get to the point where it got, where, unfortunately, you know, by August 19th, day 12, day 12, August 19th, 2020, I was, my dad comes into the room and he says, hey, let's go outside. And I didn't respond to him. I said, hey, you know, a couple of seconds later, hey, Dad, can you speak a little louder? You sound very far away. You know,
wow.
I was like, I genuinely heard him like, you know, kind of when you hear someone in a tunnel, like speaking in the very far, I heard him like that. And he was only about less than 6 feet away. He was maybe like, what, 3-4 feet away. I remember somewhere along the line, you know, my dad says, all right, listen, Alex, you're going to have to go to the hospital. I was like, all right, Dad, you know, like I'm just very tired. I'm like, I feel exhausted. I'm not in the best conditions. And he dragged me the best way he could until I went to the living room and he pretty much sat me on a chair until the paramedics came. And the paramedics came and they were like, whoa, you're very pale, sir. And they were just kind of doubting that I was alive at this point because they were like, okay, like, you know, can you hear me? I'm like, yeah, 100%. And they put the little oximeter thing on my finger and it measured 28. You know, 28 was my oxygen level. And they put this oxygen mask on me and it rose to like 70 something, like really quick.
Which is still
low. Very low.
Yeah.
But, you know, they were like, okay, he's alive. We can somehow, you know, if we could somehow rush him to the hospital, maybe we could save his life. Or at least intubate him and, you know, stabilize him for the time being. And that is exactly what happened.
Excuse me. How much of that could you hear? Like how you talked about
once they put the oxygen mask, I was a little bit more responsive, more alert because like I actually felt better in them immediately. Like I was like, wow, I like this. Like thank God, I feel better.
Yes, okay.
And I didn't think anything of it, anything that was happening. I didn't think for a second I'm gonna die here. Like. I asked myself at one point that, but I never thought, wow, yeah, this is it for me. I'm hitting the books, you know, like go for it. No, I really didn't. I remember that I was taken on the ambulance and when we got there, I see like 6 or 7 nurses just like rushing to, you know, administer IV, administer all these other things and you know, oxygen mask, and they kept saying his oxygen is dropping. Like I could hear very far away at this point. And I just remember one of the head doctors said cardiac arrest. For some reason, I wasn't scared in the least, like not in the least. The only thing I remember being scared of was like being intubated. And I said, do not intubate me. Like, do not intubate me. Whatever you do, do not, administer any sort of anything to try to intubate me. I do not give my consent. And they tried with like different oxygen masks. They kept getting up to like 89, which is still low, but
Still low.
it was getting
Yes, but still
closer. And then they
manageable.
put this like trumpet looking thing mask on me, which is called a BiPAP machine. Like it's like literally pre-intubation. Like it's
Yes.
pre-intubation. So, basically I was like, oh my God, like they're really going to intubate me. And, no, that thing stabilized me. It took me up to like 97. And yeah, I was fine at this point. Now they had me on that, and it was so difficult to breathe with that thing because it would literally breathe in more than what you could breathe out, basically, because it was
Yeah.
trying to save your life. And I get it,
Yes.
like I had no problem with it. Once they stabilized me, that's when it hit. Like, wow, I'm here. And I said to myself, man, I wonder how long I'm gonna be here. And I kept hearing people say, wow, this guy almost died. Like, can't believe he came with that low of an oxygen saturation level and still made it. And it's like, I realized at this point, like, okay, I'm alive. And it was, the first week was hell. I kept asking to leave, and they were like, yeah, you're not leaving. And unfortunately, the medical practitioner that I had, I will not mention his name, for out of respect, he kept, I don't know if he did it on purpose. I don't think he did. I think there's a difference between being blunt and genuinely trying to, like, I felt this vibe that he was trying to, like, let it sink in. I'm going to stay here for a very long time. You're going to be here for a while. He said, you're going to be here for a while, and I don't know if you're going to make it. But he said it with this tone of like, okay, like doom and gloom. And I just remember, my heart rate was was very high at the point, was like always in the hundreds. Then they administered this remdesivir medicine, which at the time was like a breakthrough medicine.
Yeah.
A weekend, this guy is doom and gloom, the doctor. Everyone's kind of doom and glooming me, and I just lose help. I get helpless, Joel. I lose faith. No, actually, I'll go back to that statement in a second. But I just get more and more restless, and anxiety starts creeping in. And like I said, a lot of these thoughts that you never thought you would get acquainted with start reaching for your head. I'll be honest with you. Around the second week, they were still having me on 90% of oxygen saturation, and my heart rate was at 140 all day. And I remember that at one point I got in a conversation with my mom, and she was like, Alex, I can't make you believe something, because I kept telling her, they keep telling me that I'm not leaving, Mom. And we got into this really huge fight, and I dropped the phone, and I said, no, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And I remember, Joel, that I said to God, wow. You know what I realized? I said, I'll be honest, God. I'll be honest with you, because there's no one else I can be honest with here at the moment. I am empty. I don't have anything. I'm empty. I don't have faith. I've written hundreds of songs about the things that you do and these things, but I didn't believe in any one of them. I just probably wrote them because I heard about you. Kind of like Job said, they're either
but my eyes
haven't seen what you can do. And so I remember that I just me desahogué. I let it all out, and I said to God, if you get me out of here and you never allow me to see a hospital bed once more, I will serve you for the rest of my life. I will give up on whatever it is that I wanted to do, and I'll just follow whatever your dream for me it is. And I just remember like a very soothing word, just saying, "Sing to me." And I said, "Man," I had to myself, I'm like, "Dude, my lungs are fried. You want me to sing to you right now?"
The least of the
Like, I
things.
mean, I
Yes, you
can't
can ask
sing
me
right
right
now. Like, I
now.
could barely. I mean, I was a lot better, believe it or not. Even though they were
But it's
administering
still
90% of oxygen, I was still a lot better. But I was like, really? Okay, here goes nothing. And I start singing at the top of my lungs. And all of a sudden, you see all these nurses, come into my room and they start crying and they
really.
start, like just in all of what I was doing. And then even the doom and gloom doctor that was there, he looks at me. He's like, What is this guy doing? Like, this guy has fried lungs and he's singing to God, like, and he actually sings
What
halfway
were you
decent.
singing? Like
I was singing.
you were
No, I
just
was singing.
singing.
No, I was singing the
Like
song by Elevation. I see
okay.
you move the mountains, and I believe that you
Yeah,
do.
but you were. What I mean is, like, you were singing a song, an actual song, and they
And
came
it's
and they
like,
were
yeah, they
like,
were like, wow, what is this
it,
guy doing?
it was just not that you were
No, I was
mumbling
singing out
anything.
of the
Like you
top
was
of my.
singing.
You,
That's what
you
I'm
know
saying.
how
Yeah,
I'm very loud. I sing when I
yeah,
sing.
yeah,
I sing
yeah.
on the top of my lungs every single time. So after that, I just feel this peace that I, for the first time, experienced it in my life. Peace that
Wow,
surpasses all understanding. The next day,
understanding.
my sister calls, and my sister's a very amazing sister, but she's also a character. She calls the
Huh.
hospital and she says, "My brother's been on 90%. His oxygen, his heart rate is over the roof, and you guys you're killing him. He can breathe on his own." And they start weaning me off of the oxygen. I was at
Mm.
90%. They lowered me to 70. They saw that my oxygen was still like a 97, 98. That was one day after. On the day after. The second day, they lowered me to 50.
Wow, that's a lot of improvement because I've seen that actually
Exactly.
myself at
You've seen
hospitals.
how this works.
Yeah, I've seen it. The problem is when the machine is helping you breathe till
Exactly. But in this
98,
case, I was still
99,
fine.
yeah, the machine is helping you, and your lungs become lazy. They don't want to
They're
breathe
like, never
actually because
mind.
they're nice. They're okay. They don't expand
They're
as
like,
much.
yeah, this guy's
But if
okay. Like, this can.
it's okay, yeah, the machine because your lungs are it's okay. Someone is helping me
Like, I don't have
breathe,
to
right? Like
worry.
expand
But
and
they had me
contract.
2
I'm
weeks
okay.
unnecessarily. My lungs were already. But
Yeah.
either way, like, my heart rate was starting to go down. On day 3,
Yeah.
they lowered me down to 35. And they said, "All right, Mr. Soto, I think by the end of the day, you're going to be on a regular cannula, like the one that doesn't even
Yeah.
distribute that much." And sure enough, and on day 3, at the end of day 3, they were like, "Yeah, Mr. Soto, we're finally going to move you to the room upstairs, which is the downstairs. I'm sorry, which is the one for people that are about to be discharged." In 5 days after that prayer, after me singing off the top of my lungs, God took me out. It's only when you say, "I'm empty, I can't do this anymore," that God says,
Wow.
"Okay, I'm ready to do what I need to do." But here's the thing, like,
Going back to
you
the
can go,
lifeguard,
but
huh?
here's the
The
thing, at the
very
end of the day,
beginning.
my friend, you can go through your entire life being empty. Think about
Yes.
that. There's a possibility you can spend
Yes.
your entire lifetime being empty, saying, "I don't need faith. I'll just live by whatever life throws at me." And no, but I decided I don't want to be empty anymore. And that was the biggest thing. And I realized when I got out of there, that was my. It's kind of like the Book of Job. I think of the Book of Job as the gymnasium of the Bible.
Hmm.
Because here you see a man that was, stripped of everything that he had and his children and
Yes.
everything. And then, the person that was supposed to be his rock, his wife said, "Hey, you should curse your God and die."
Yeah. And die.
And maybe I was in that moment in my life where I wanted to curse God and die. Pero en el pozo de mi desesperación, él me oyó. In the worst
Yes.
moment of my life, he said, "I want to fill you. I don't want you to be empty anymore. And I realize I have everything that I need in my life. Everything that I need is right where I am. See, but you see, here's the thing, Joel. Sometimes he takes you to that desert because he wants you to flourish in the desert.
Yes.
He wants you to flourish where the odds aren't in your favor. Because when you flourish where the odds aren't in your favor, that's the only place that God can receive glory. Here's the thing, there's a power in drowning. Because you can be saved if you're helpless. You can be saved if you're unable. But if you're full of this confidence, can God really do anything for you?
Well, let's talk about this. We were together, and this is a funny story, huh? Like in Guatemala, right there in front of that beautiful lake, right? And we're making the joke of that song that talks about calling me, you know, like
he called out upon the waters there, of course.
upon the
Oceans,
waters. Yes, oceans. Because we were exactly in front of dark waters, like you couldn't
No,
see anything there, and then you face the unknown once, which was a very hard, deep unknown. What is the unknown now? How do you face the unknown now?
The interesting thing about this song is, like I told you, is like one of those songs like that I've written over a course of time, or a very
Yes.
long course of time.
And I've heard of those songs
That they
like,
just take a very long time to write.
some take what 3, 5, 6
Like for
minutes,
example,
10
when I
minutes,
wrote
and
Mi Niño, with Dos Sonos, that was a song that took like 6 or 7 years for me to finally.
wow.
No, not 6 or 7 years. I won't say. No, wait, hold up. We finally recorded it in. Yeah, it was about 6 years. I won't say like 6 years, something like that. The interesting thing is this song took a very long time because like I had written that first verse that says, "The captain of our souls hides secrets behind curtains of gold." Why I said that is because, when I think of the presence of God, there's just an imagination, right? You think of like, okay, when you walk into a building that has these amazing doors, you think, oh, right, what's inside of it has to be incredible. What's inside of it has to be something out of this world. And it's like, wow, I'm walking into. You always think of the door, or you always think of the threshold before you walk into something, because that is an unknown. That threshold hides something that you were not aware of. And I think that the unknown, for me, when I decided, all right, when I told my dad, all right, fine, call the ambulance, I didn't know it was going to be 19 days of agony, 19 days of,
yes,
being in, well, it was essentially 17 days in room 349, because 419 was the last room that I was in, but 349 was 17 days of darkness, absolute, like just darkness, like no light whatsoever. And what excites me about songwriting so much is that, for me, songwriting is very much like a person that you don't know yet. Or like a mother that wants to have children but can't, or has had a very tough time having children. It's like you miss someone that you've never met before. How is that possible?
I heard you say that analogy.
How
before.
can you miss someone that you have never met before in your life? Like, how is that even possible?
What have you seen now? Like, now that those doors have opened to you?
I think what I've seen now is what the chorus of the song says.
Yes.
I haven't begun dreaming.
You had not?
Haven't begun
yet.
dreaming at this point. The interesting part of this song was I remember I had the verse and I had the chorus, but I didn't have anything in between. Like the pre-chorus, you could say. And the chorus of the song says, I haven't begun dreaming. When you walk through the threshold that God allows you to walk through, you realize there's so much more than the dreams that you have. God's plans, like Jeremiah 29:11. for I know the plans that I have for you. Someone once said, you want to make God laugh? Tell him your plans. Say, God, I want to reach this destination by going through this route. And he says, no, that route isn't quite.
No.
That's not quite the one I want to take you through.
Yes.
Soto, I think you have something else to learn. When I walked through the threshold into the unknown, when I walked through the process that I've lived, I realized, man, God's plans for my life go beyond my musical dreams or my musical goals. Like, life is so much more than the things that you're good at. Life is so much more than the things you say to people. Life is about the things that people will say about you when you're no longer here. And it's like, did everything that you do in life point to Jesus, or did it point to you? And I think that that's what I learned. God, I haven't begun dreaming. I haven't dreamed enough about making you famous. I haven't dreamed enough of the things that are going to glorify you. I've dreamed about my personal goals. I've dreamed about the things that I want from my life. I dreamed of my satisfaction in my deathbed. But have I dreamed about the things that will make you happy the day that you decide to take me home? And that's when I realized, oh, Captain, my captain, I haven't begun dreaming. My pastor said that to me recently. Alex, los sueños de Dios para ti son más grandes que los que tú tienes para ti mismo. And that's what this is. I haven't begun dreaming. Oh, Captain, my captain, I haven't begun dreaming. Your legacy that you leave in this world, if it didn't point to Jesus, it's pointless, because it has no value in eternity. We made it. We made it to the end, guys. We made it to the end.
Last but not least, right?
I think it's the most important one. I think it's the most important one.
You know what? I would agree, and not for personal reasons, but I see actually far beyond the superficial.
After seeing the entire set list, you see how
we
were somewhere at the beginning, and then we arrived.
And I love it, actually. I love it, because un nuevo mundo comienza, a new world begins.
The title of the song is Un nuevo mundo comienza. A new world begins.
Right, and I guess we switch roles now.
we actually switch roles here. I'm my co-host for this album, you could say, Joel Gomez. He's at the moment. We're on April 7th, opening day for baseball today, and we are here.
Astros.
Let's go Astros! I think we're playing against the Twins. I forgot.
No, Angels. Framber Valdez and versus Shohei
my God,
Ohtani.
that's going to be incredible. Hopefully he doesn't get the best of us today. No, hopefully we got to chase this guy early. But going back to Un Nuevo Mundo Comienza, the funny thing about this song is, I was telling our co-host here, I have not shown him the song. I've shown him nearly every other song in this album. I want it to be a surprise that I will be able to show him hopefully in a couple weeks. And the funny thing about this song is that this song really, how do I explain this? I want to explain this in a way that is very easy to understand. This song was really inspired by his wife, and his wife, basically, I remember one time, I remember going into, she's the director of the entire kids ministries, like the toddlers and the infants, right? And
yes.
And she's an amazing caregiver to these children, and I think that the impact that she's doing in their lives is just something that is going to, that is going to last their lifetime. Yeah. That is going to last their lifetime. They're always going to remember Evelyn, for being their first teacher, essentially. I I remember one day this lady came up to her and asked, "Hey, when are you? You're so great at you're so great at taking care of kids. When are you gonna have a kid of your own?" And I remember that at the time I've always like, man, that's so insensitive. Like that's hey, like that's none of your business. I thought in my head, like, hey, like back off. I was trying really hard to like stay composed because I thought that was a very interesting and just inappropriate thing, to ask. But then what impacted me the most was her response, and her smile at the time. Even though it was so painful to hear it, I just remember her saying, "Cuando sea el tiempo que venga mi retoño, lo voy a tener." I just remember her saying that. When it's time for my, how do you say it, for my offspring, you could say.
Offspring, yeah.
When it's time for me to conceive an offspring, or when it's time for, we think of time. We think of time. We have a limited amount of it on here on earth. And I thought to my life, again, while we mentioned, I'm pretty sure you and Evelyn have waited for Caleb for a long time. And you've missed him, even though you didn't even know, you missed him even before you'd know his name would be Caleb.
Exactly.
You missed this person. Like you didn't know how he looked. You didn't know if it was going to be boy or girl. You didn't know anything, but you missed this person. You miss because you want to experience what it means to be a father.
A father, mother, yeah.
Or a mother. And I just remember, just being in awe of her response. And, I remember praying for you guys a lot as a family. Here in our house as a family, we prayed a lot for you guys. God, we asked that you give, Joel and Evelyn, their offspring, and that there's so much desire. And I remember the day that you came up to me. You didn't even tell me, "Hey, we're pregnant." You just rubbed your belly, and I knew. And I knew, you rubbed her belly. She said, you said Alex, and you rubbed her belly, and I knew, and tears came down my face. And because God knows how much we've prayed for you as a family. And I thought of you going into this new season as a father. And I think, like, even though I'm not a father yet, I'm not even married yet, but me going into this next season of my life, this next chapter, and and
what is that? The expression seize the day.
Seize the day, carpe diem.
Yeah, carpe diem.
Me going into this next chapter.
That's your next motto.
And releasing my first solo album, which those of us that are artists know that releasing an album is like having a kid.
Yes, exactly.
It has a lot of growing pains. It has a lot. So we're both essentially are becoming fathers pretty soon. And, me, this is my third one
right now.
Me, this is essentially my third one, but this one's very important because it's my first solo project. Under my name, and it's my firstborn, you could say. And even though I don't expect it to be a #1 hit album, I really don't.
Why not?
I'm saying it on the record. I just don't. I don't think that's the purpose of this thing.
Yes.
I don't think that's the purpose. I think this is more of something me. I want to get this out of my chest and move into this next chapter of my life, whatever it might be. But un nuevo mundo comienza. A new world begins for both of our lives. And at the end of the day, when a new world begins, there's a lot of doubt. There's a lot of insecurity. There's a lot of questions that you want answers to, because then again, like the previous song said, we're sailing into the unknown. We're sailing into this world that starts, and you don't know. Is he gonna have blue eyes? Is he gonna have green eyes? You never know. Is he gonna like baseball, which I really hope he does, or is he gonna like soccer? We don't know. But this new world begins, and it's so exciting. And even though there's going to be a lot of pain and a lot of suffering and a lot of trials, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of springs, which we can be happy about.
I was gonna say it is literally right now the time to spring.
The spring,
This spring.
forth, spring forth. You know, she's bringing
Yeah.
forth a beautiful baby boy, and I'm bringing forth an album that I hopefully,
Wow.
a good 10 people can listen to. I'm just kidding.
Amazing.
No, honestly, but I know you were not expecting what I'm about to do right now, and I want, before this song starts, or maybe I don't know, or maybe I'll put it after. I'll figure this out. But what do you want Caleb to know? I want you to say something to him so that when he's maybe old enough to understand this, what do you want to tell him now that you know that he's coming into your life?
That he was born to be a warrior. He was born to be a messenger of good news. That he was born to tell about a God that he can do things, can do great things. That he was born to be a messenger. And if you and I, the host and the co-host of the
God,
podcast,
I'm in tears already. Oh my God.
that if you and I have been to the other side of the world and I have shared the news, the good news of Christ, how much more he's going to do, just as much as this album is going to do. Amen.
Yeah, and Caleb, it's your uncle here. Well, at least one of your uncles. You have a lot of uncles here. I love you, Caleb. You're going to be great. And I'm so excited to meet you. I'm so excited to take you to your first baseball game with your dad and go Astros. Hopefully we become World Series champions on your first birthday. We love you. Thank you for traveling into our lives. Thank you, Caleb. 349, thank you for all the things that you taught me, for the lessons that I learned, for the memories that I gained, and for the dreams that will never fade away, the dreams that will stay in my head and that will someday find their way into reality someday. AD, signing out.